What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
All right. Welcome to the CFF All Access Show. My name is Josh Chevalier at CFF Guys on X. I'm joined tonight by my boy, Zach Hall, the projections guru at CFF Champs on X. And man, excited to be in here tonight with you. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm good. Excited to do this. This is my first underdog best ball draft. So excited to see what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're going to get right into it because these drafts lately have been taking a little while to fill. So as man, we're the first ones in here. So it could take us a while tonight to fill. So we'll just be chatting a little bit. Yeah. How are you feeling going into your first ever underdog best ball?
Excuse me. I'm excited, man. I've only done one Power 4 draft. So excited to take another run at this. It's I think it's my first one that's not a slow clock. So excited for that as well. I always like the just that rush you get of your pick coming up. So very excited. I mean, obviously have an underdog run the CFF best balls is pretty cool. So glad I could finally jump on here with you and see what this is all about and try and put together a team here.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun night, man. I mean, these are P4 only. You and I are used to drafting all FBS teams. And so this is a little bit of a shift even for us. But, I've done about 10 to 12 of these so far. Feel like I'm getting a good lay of the land on here. And so I thought this is a good question to start off with. Scott Coyote said, new to CFB Best Bowl Mania. Got any good tips for a newbie? Yeah, man, we got you. So I think the big tips that I have that I've seen in the drafts that I've really liked is going QB and wide receiver early is a huge deal in these. There's running back depth that you can get in rounds 5 through 10, but I feel like if you walk away in the first 4 rounds without at least 2 QBs and 1 high-end wide receiver, then you're going to be hurting. Even earlier today, I went 3 QBs and 2 wide receivers in the first 5 rounds, and I really liked the build. I thought there were some solid running backs that was able to fall to me. I will tell you, Zach, this is a half PPR. I don't know if you saw that.
Okay.
But that's the format. And then we have 1 QB and then a super flex, right? So we'll probably put a QB there, of course.
Okay.
And then 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and then 1 flex. So 2 wide receivers, half PPR. I feel like that devalues the position a bit. Is that going to play into your strategy for us tonight as we're kind of talking about this and drafting teams?
Yeah, I think it probably will just a little bit. It doesn't seem like it'll devalue those guys a whole lot, but I'm a guy that typically will be happy waiting on receiver anyways. So in a half PPR, I guess it's going to probably change it just a little bit. But I guess for me, if you're going to get one of those top guys, it's not going to matter, right? It's going to be that high volume. You're still going to want that guy, but I guess it doesn't change it too much for me.
Yeah. One of the things that I have noticed is that some of the slot receivers, like an Xavier Restrepo, who might be a more high volume guy, but not a lot of yards. I've seen them dropping a little bit. And so feels like maybe the field in that way is letting those guys go just a little bit more. Now, I understand that. I mean, when you have a guy that gets a lot of receptions, but it's half PPR, like those points don't go as far as a full PPR for sure. So yeah, I think for me with that, it's, some of these slot receivers early, I might be willing to wait on. Emeka Buka has been going pretty high in these drafts. And, again, he's another one that I would say, hey, maybe I wouldn't draft him as high because of the half PPR in this format. So we're waiting on, we got four in the draft so far. Hey, if you're in the chat and you want to join us on this draft, man, we got 250 with us. Like, we would love for you guys to join us. It'd be fun to draft together as we are kind of breaking this down together as well. So, and I also wanted to share a little bit with you guys. We actually have at Fantasy Points, we have a deal with Underdog, a special promotion that we're running here, and they will match up to $250. And so as a 50% match, if you put down $500 with Underdog, they'll match up to $250 of that. And then also we're giving away $55 off of our college football only subscription package here. So it's a $150 package, $55 off. That's over 30%. It's a great deal. We are doing best ball rankings for Underdog. We have projections, but man, our bread and butter, honestly, is our projections for CFF and DFS. We write articles for almost every slate that's out there in DFS. And then we're going to do projected ownership this year as well. Zach and I have been messing around with that and figuring out how to give you guys some projected ownership for DFS. And then our projections last year were some of the tops in the industry. So I'm really excited about our package, what we have coming. Our props last year hit a 63% rate. So all of those, big time stuff. So that promo code for Underdog is Fantasy PTS. So Fantasy PTS stands for Fantasy Points. You can put that into Underdog and then use that over at Fantasy Points as well. So looking forward to that. Hey, we're going to take a quick break here and come right back as we wait for this room to fill up. All right. So, Zach, one of the things that I've kind of noticed in these drafts is that, the format getting into this is that you basically the first 11 weeks, you're in a pod together with 12 other players, and it's the top players in that pod. The two of the top 12 go to kind of the next round. And then from there, it's a certain number of people that goes to the next round each week. So, weeks 12 through 14 have greater importance, right, than, every other week. So those are really the ones that we want to pay attention to. One of the things that is different here than in like an NFL best ball is that in our playoffs in week 12, there's a lot of bye weeks. There's 18 buys in week 12. So I think that's definitely going to play a factor in these drafts. Any kind of like thoughts or ideas behind like when you hear about that in the week 12 buys, anything come to mind or any players come to mind?
Yeah, I'd need to go back and look at our schedule matrix to kind of see. I mean, this feels like the perfect kind of draft where hopefully soon we can have our schedule matrix up where you can go and kind of see how guys compare. Because I think you're probably not only going to want to look at who has the buys, but also what kind of matchups you have. Because I know in week 12, some of those teams could also have like that FCS type school. So that could depend on that value could also not be as great. If you have like some of those SEC teams, you always have kind of that FCS matchup right around that week 12. And you might only get them for half a game. Typically, they still get points, maybe not as many as they get other weeks of the year. But that's something else that I guess I would be thinking about too, is that week 12 is going to be really tough. And if you're able to manage that, I think you probably got a good chance if you can get there, right? But I'm just looking through right now, and so many teams with week 12 by this year. So I'm sure that's a huge challenge. I know one thing I haven't been great at this year anyways is the buys and how they're lining up. And I've had a few drafts in full FBS where I'm like, oh man, I got to find some guys that don't have the same buy when I'm getting kind of down towards the end of a draft. And I think you got to start paying attention to that a little bit sooner here. And especially I think the way I would probably approach this, I haven't done one yet, so it'll be interesting to see. But my first few rounds, I would probably really be trying to balance that out and make sure the guys on the board, what does that week 12, 13, and 14 look like? And if I have some of those top tier guys, second tier guys that don't have a bye, probably target them, even if maybe they're a little bit down in the rankings just because of that.
Yeah.
That scheduling.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And, I think one of the things that I'm finding is that the more week 12 bye quarterbacks that I have, the more that I am getting acquainted with who has good week 12 matchups. So
Yeah.
that's something for me that's made a big difference. I'm going to walk you through a little bit here in our rankings and the guys that are going early in ADP. Actually, I'll go not even by our rankings, but by ADP. I mean, you look at Dylan Gabriel. He doesn't have a week 12 bye, but he does have a week 13. He's one of two teams with Washington and Oregon that have week 13 buys. And then you come back through here, and then you come down to Jackson Dart, which might be why he's been slipping a little bit in ADP, but he's got a week 12 bye. And then you got down here in like the range of quarterbacks, you'd be like, man, there's some good value here. KJ Jefferson, week 12 bye with UCF. You have Kyron Drones, week 12 bye. And then even down a little bit lower, you got Jackson Arnold with a week 12 bye. And then Cam Ward, who, man, I got him in the 5th round today, but he's got a week 12 bye. So normally I'd be like, man, stacking Arnold and Drones or Arnold and Jefferson or Arnold and Ward, like feels like it's like an awesome stack quarterback. And then you go, man, I got to navigate the bye weeks here. Same thing with Jackson Dart. So a lot of the guys that we like to target actually are guys that ultimately have these week 12 buys. And so we got to navigate that. And it may, affect even kind of our roster construction.
Yeah, that's going to make it tough. It makes it fun though. Trying to piece it together.
Yeah. And, a couple guys that I've been looking at later, and I'd love to get your thoughts on these guys, is a guy like Peyton Thorne. I mean, from Auburn, you see in week 12, they play ULM. So they have Louisiana Monroe that week. Drafting one of these guys early, or even drafting two of them, then I'll look at a Peyton Thorne. I mean, he went round 14 in a draft I did today, and the guy's not going to average more than 20 fantasy points per game, but because of the week 12 matchup.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what you're gonna have to do is try and find some of those guys to help out. Because the other thing we don't really know about right now is going to be injury, right? And you might think you're set on week 12 or even a week 13 if you take one of those guys, but just making sure you have pretty solid depth. And a guy like that, I guess I'm not too familiar with where he's going yet, but could be a really nice later round guy. And even if it's just for, hey, I just want this guy for, that week 12 game. Because you're right, that's probably going to be one of his best games on the season, where he's getting right around 20 points. But that's a game where he's probably got a little bit higher ceiling than the rest of the season there.
Yep. We're waiting on 4 more people to join. So if you're here watching us and you want to join us, we'd love for you to join us and to be with us on this. Another quarterback, man, that I'm looking at here is Kentucky quarterback Brock Vandagriff, a guy that I never thought of before last week as a guy that I'd want to pick up, but he's got Murray State in week 12. And so, again, it's like if these are guys that if I got Cam Ward and Jackson Arnold that I'm stacking because they're good values, then coming back around with a Brock Vandagriff or a Peyton Thorne is a totally viable option, in my opinion, in this type of format. Yeah, so there's guys that like.
I got a question for you. Because another thing that it looks like we might have to navigate as you're drafting through here, another favorable matchup. Washington State has New Mexico in week 12, but we don't necessarily know who that QB is going to be. So you almost have to use, it feels like limited roster spots as it is, but you might have to use 2 if you want to try and get that. Are those when are those guys going? Are they going pretty early?
So John Mateer is going.
Okay.
He's going round 10. People are drafting him as if he's going to be the guy. As we know, we've watched this really closely this offseason, this battle, that Zevi Eckhouse, might be the guy in weeks 12 through 14. And so honestly, I think it's a must handcuff. And if I'm not liking what I've done is if I don't like the guys that I've gotten early on, or I've had to fade QBs for whatever reason, then I will handcuff Mateer and Eckhouse. And in fact, I might just go ahead and just draft Eckhouse even late in some of these as a, kind of risky guys. And so that's one. DJ Lagway is another one that we've been talking about quite a bit. As a guy that like Graham Mertz has Florida has some good matchups late in the season. LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State, that could be, really shootouts, at least the LSU and Ole Miss game. And Graham Mertz might not be starting at that point, depending on what their wins and losses. And, it's a tough schedule. Billy Napier is going to be on the hot seat. So DJ Lagway could come in and put up 30 points a game those last couple of games, like Nico or Avery did in the bowl game. Any thoughts on that type of strategy of going after like a Lagway or an Eckhouse late?
That's interesting. I probably wouldn't have really thought to even do that. But it's definitely an interesting strategy. I think it's a little bit risky just because you're making some assumptions and
down narrative street for sure.
Yeah. I don't hate it though. And I think it's one of those you got to kind of see how your roster falls to see if it really fits. Especially if you feel really good about maybe a top two guys that you get early and you can kind of take that chance. I would feel a little bit better. If you feel like that position's a little bit weaker, I myself probably would stay away from something like that, because you're really gonna have to count on, it's just gonna be a little bit riskier for me.
It's risky.
I think.
Yeah, totally. And I think like when, one of the things that I've been talking about with some guys when I've come on these live streams is that, we're used to drafting with 12 guys, right? In a single best ball and winning that best ball. And this is different because it gets into kind of the, the GPP strategies of a DFS, where you got to win those last 3 weeks. And it doesn't really, if you just get to the week 12, you win $5, and so you've lost 50% of the money that you put in. And so, coming down to that end and trying to get some home runs at the end feels like a strategy that you might have to take. I will say this, and we've been talking about these in the chats too, and these live streams, is that you need 3 to 4 QBs in the first 10 rounds. Like, you need to build a really solid base there. And if you do that, then you can take the shot on a Eckhouse.
Is it, hey, you might have mentioned this. Is it 4-point passing touchdown or 6?
It's 4-point.
4-point. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it definitely, leans towards our dual threat economic code quarterbacks that we like.
Yep.
So all this is good. Hey, real quick, everyone too, we, I told you guys that we had some best ball rankings for Underdog up on our site. We actually just updated those today. Just adjusted for these QBs going higher than we're in our rankings. We have a CSV sheet that you can upload. That's what we got here in the chat. Is we have our rankings uploaded here in Best Ball, our Underdog, make it really easy to do that. So you have your ranks over here and then your ADP. And so we can adjust by our ranks and see what we got here. So we got all that up on the site and updated. We got some our tiered positional rankings coming out. Froton did that, so they're a little bit different than mine, but love that from Froton, and we'll be releasing those within the next day or two as well. So I think we got a pretty good stuff coming for you guys here on our website to prep you for these best balls. Hey, we're going to take one more break here. We got one person we're waiting on here to fill this room. We're going to take one more break here, and then we'll be right back. All right.
Hey, I got a question for you, Josh.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So you've done quite a few of these. Are you finding some really good values with our ranks according to the ADP? Or has it been pretty close to kind of where we're at?
Yeah. No, I think there's some great values according to our ADP. Even you can see here, I think I have it by ranks, go by running backs. We were doing this with even today with Neil, kind of walking through some of these, and like Damian Martinez, right? We have him ranked 21 in our overall rankings. He's going at 34. Damian Martinez, you can at the beginning of the last week, you're getting him in the 4th or 5th round. So again, with those week 12 buys, I think they are affecting the way that people are drafting. All right, we have our slot here. We got the 3rd slot. So this is an interesting slot in drafts because we're basically deciding between, Ollie Gordon will probably go number 1. And so do we go a top flight wide receiver in Tetairoa McMillan or Luther Burden and then wait for QBs to fall to us? Or do we try to go after Dylan Gabriel knowing he has that week 13 bye? So, we got about a minute until this draft or 30 seconds until this draft starts. For you, what do you want to do here? Do you want to go wide receiver or QB? I'm assuming Ollie Gordon is gone.
Yeah, and we're going 3rd here. I like to go QB early. Anyways, it feels like that might make the most sense here, especially if Gabriel's there. I really like Gabriel this year. I think I know the schedule is a little bit tougher from what he's used to, but he was such a consistent quarterback, and he has been really for all the years we've had him. It seems like he's been playing forever through UCF and Oklahoma. But he's one of those top tier guys that is very consistent, has a really high floor, and he can give you a pretty high ceiling. And I think in that offense, he might not run it as much as we've seen in the past. I think he probably still could. But that offense is going to score points. They're going to move the ball. There's going to be a lot of yards there for him. He's got really good weapons. So that's a guy that I like to draft just because I know what I'm going to get with him.
Boom.
He went. So spent all that time talking about him only for us to take. So here I like Burden a little bit more.
Yeah, I do too. I think the Tetairoa McMillan injury, right? Like we don't know if he's gonna be healthy for fall camp. I think that definitely, takes the cake for Luther Burden here. But why do you like Luther Burden?
So I feel like partly because I know this isn't very popular. So he's in a new system this year, and there is some value there, but I don't know if the value is going to be quite the same for him. I think we know what we're going to have with Luther Burden. We know what that offense is going to be capable of doing. I think there's I feel like there's going to just be a little bit more for Burden this year. And the injury piece is a big part of it too, right? I really like Tet early on. The injury kind of held me back. And then I don't know if the ceiling is going to be as high for Tet this year as it was last year. I feel like he's still, he's my number 2 receiver. So I say that, and he's got a lot of value, but I just like Luther Burden. I think there feels like more upside, at least right now, for him in that offense.
Yeah. I mean, he's super explosive. He can take a 2-yard screen pass to the house at any point. Couple interesting observations here. So Wakey, he's done a lot of these underdog best ball drafts with me. He usually goes, I've seen him go QB quite a bit, and 3 QBs in the first 4 rounds. Today I said that, and then he didn't do that earlier. But this is also interesting. Evan Stewart is actually not usually going before Tez Johnson in drafts.
Nice. So I like it. I got Evan Stewart ahead. Yeah, that makes sense. I haven't seen Evan Stewart go before Tez in a long time. So, but I think we're on the same page there. I think we both have Stewart ahead of Tez in our rankings.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I'm just watching it as we go, and I mean, you're right. I'm not used to seeing so many QBs go off in that first round. So definitely, those are definitely going off the board quick.
Yeah, and you'll see like Avery Johnson, who goes a lot higher than what we see typically in the drafts that we do. I mean, he's usually the 6th or 7th QB off the board here. Jackson Dart, again, is falling. And I'm just curious. So Jackson Dart early on was like the 2nd QB off the board. And, people have been waiting. And I think it's the week 12 buys that people are starting to get wise on that. And so a guy like Jackson Dart is now dropping into the 2nd round.
And he's one that has a week 12 bye.
Mm-hmm.
Do they show the buys on here?
They don't. So we have to go off of our spreadsheet.
Okay.
Carp Golf just took our boy Jackson Arnold.
Carp's in the draft.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, here, I think these are usually the QBs. Avery Johnson will go here in a minute, but after he goes, those are really the top, 7 QBs that go in that range. And then you'll have guys like KJ Jefferson, Kyron Jones, Shedeur Sanders, that'll go kind of in the next tier of QBs. Another one here that has been rising quite a bit in this format is a Devin Neal.
Yeah.
Devin Neal is a guy. I mean, the schedule for Kansas is obvious. We really love that, right? And then you see that BYU, Colorado, and Baylor weeks 12 through 14. So to me, that also shows a lot of value for a guy like Jalen Daniels, where maybe in most drafts I'd wait for him to drop in double digits, but in this format where the schedule is really going to matter down the stretch, and he's a guy that can put up 40 points in a game. I think there's some value there. Man, Phil Moff, I've never seen him go this late. So that was a great value by Wakey. So we're up in 3 picks, man. So we got, Jaden Ott, Jordan James kind of at the top of our queue. And then then we have a little bit down here. We got Shedeur Sanders. I'm going to go to QBs real quick so we can see them. But Cam Ward, Kyron Jones, Shedeur Sanders, all kind of in that range. We are up. And so KJ Jefferson went 2.5. Here we got Taj Brooks here that we could take. We could go Jeremy Bernard, Xavier Restrepo. Anything stick out to you?
So I would probably lean running back here. We'll come around.
I'm gonna go Taj Brooks.
Yep, I like that.
Sorry, the 30-second clock, man.
You gotta go. Yeah, no, I like Taj Brooks. I think I don't know if he'll see the volume he had last year, but I just don't know if that offense is going to be able to throw the ball like they want to, and he's going to be a big piece of that offense. So,
yeah, I totally agree, and I think too. With Taj Brooks, he's in a half PPR format. I'm more comfortable drafting him than other formats. We could come here, so we're up again. QBs, right? Drones, Castellanos just went. So Jeremy Bernard or Trey Harris?
I know you probably lean Harris. I lean Bernard here.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I just think he's going to be the guy in that offense.
I do too. I mean, you can talk about that offense real quick.
Yeah, he's familiar with the system. I know historically he doesn't have a ton of production, but we know what that offense is going to give us, and it's you saw what they had with Adunze last year, and when Bernard was actually in there, I thought he did all right. He's a guy that I picked up had in Dynasty and held on to just because it felt like he's a guy that's really going to make an impact. I loved his move to Alabama. I actually liked it more than him staying at Washington. So and the other thing about Trey Harris, I think he's got a pretty high ceiling, but I think his floor is going to be a little bit lower. They just have more options, it feels like right now. And was kind of a little bit of boom bust last year, where I think Bernard will be a little bit more consistent with a good high end.
Yeah, I totally agree. He was the 4th wide receiver at Washington last year, but man, he's got a wide open wide receiver room, right?
Yeah.
there where he's at in Alabama. You're talking about potentially the wide receiver 2 by the end of the year as a true freshman that, skipped a senior year of high school. So, I really like that. Hey, man, I just want to shout out Carp real quick. He's in the comments. He's in this draft. The start of Nico, Jackson Arnold, and Damian Martinez is a great start to a draft.
I really like that.
Yeah,
that's really value. Solid. Especially if you're talking about, we talked a lot about quarterback to begin with, and those are just 2 really solid guys. They're both top 10 guys for us. Martinez, I think I have him right around the top 10 as a running back too. So, yeah. And we've talked about Martinez a lot and just how many carries he's going to get this year, and really should be a bell cow in that offense. So, really solid.
Yeah, I really like the start to that draft. And I think you can see here, and we'll see it as it comes about, but running backs, there's going to be a lot of value. And again, in those like 6 to 10 rounds that we should be able to like feed off of that. So I like, us being able to start with Burden and Bernard. That's a very solid 1-2 combo wide receiver. They're going to get a lot of volume, but also potentially get a lot of yards too. And then Taj Brooks, in a half PPR format, I'm more than happy to take a running back that's gotten 250 carries or more in the last couple of years. So I think they can lean on him again. Go ahead.
Yeah. What quarterbacks are we looking at available right now?
Yeah. So we can pivot back over there. So Cam Ward, Jalen Daniels are the 2 top ones in our rankings. Then Will Howard, Preston Stone, Carson Beck. I honestly, you can see that the ADP for Jalen Daniels a few days ago, he was like in the 70s.
Oh, so he's starting to rise up a little bit.
Yeah, people see
if
him.
he stays healthy, really solid quarterback. He's going to get you points. It's just that health factor with him.
Yep. So if we get it here, I'm gonna go Cam Ward and then come back around with Jalen Daniels.
I like that.
But nothing ever goes how you want it to go. But if it does, then yeah, I like Cam Ward there. At this juncture, you have 3 800-yard receivers that he's throwing to there, and then a solid running back. And we saw what Cam Ward get 8 touchdowns last year, I think, on the ground.
Yeah. I think he's going to be so good in that offense. He's a guy that just continues to rise up in my rankings. And then to go back on that, Jalen Daniels, if he stays healthy, and we talk about that week 12 through 14, we talked about it with Devin Neal, that is such a good schedule for a quarterback if he's still there or still healthy. With BYU and Colorado, just those 2 alone, he should be really good. And then Baylor was not great last year, like we had seen the past few years. So I really love the week 12 through 14 we get with Daniels, as long as he's healthy.
Yeah,
fingers crossed.
No, absolutely. And what we've done with this build is you have Cam Ward and Jalen Daniels. So you have Cam Ward with the week 12 bye, but he is an easier quarterback to stack than most of these top end quarterbacks because you can get his stacking partner later, right? You can get a Sam Brown or Jacoby George in double-digit rounds in these drafts, so you don't have to spend the high draft capital on an Xavier Restrepo, or like when we were looking at Gabriel, we couldn't have gotten Stuart Ortez Johnson, right?
Right.
Early on because they just were going to go. I'm going to start filling up the queue here with some skill position guys. You got Deion Burks, Basil Tootin. I'm putting in Isaiah Bond. So some of these guys we can look at as we're coming back around. And then, maybe it does suit us well to look at John Mateer if he's still there, around round 10-ish. Because again, that's a guy that can have a great schedule down the stretch. As long as we pair him up with handcuff him with Ziva Eckhouse.
Yeah. We mentioned it. I love that schedule. New Mexico and Oregon State, 12 and 13, and then Wyoming, who again, they should fare pretty well against that defense, even though they've been okay against G5. They should do pretty well there. The other thing too, I've stayed away from Henderson and Singleton a little bit. But when you think about like a power 4, Henderson just went. I actually like those guys quite a bit here, just because they could have a pretty solid floor. But they're gonna have their weeks where they go off, especially Singleton, right? That one's one thing I haven't done a lot, but I wish I would have done more, is get Singleton and Allen, just because their ADP is so far apart in full drafts. Interesting to see what it is here, but if you can grab both of those guys, one of those guys is going to go off pretty much every week. So could be a really solid strategy with those 2 guys. And I think back to Henderson, I think they're going to run the ball a lot this year. So just really, really solid guys there.
Yeah. And you can see the run on QBs here, right? I mean, in round 5, like we picked, Jalen Daniels at 51, but you had 5 QBs go off in a row, 3 QBs before that, right? So 8, 10. I mean, look, 15. So you got 24 QBs going off in the first 5 rounds. Just kind of goes to show you how people are prioritizing the position. So we can go Nick Singleton here if we want. I don't mind that. We need another running back.
Yeah, I also like Fegan. What is their?
I
think I like him. I think I like.
round.
What's that?
We can probably get him next round. He's 84 ADP.
Okay. Yeah, he's a running back I really like. I think he's going to be the guy in that offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I say we try to come back and snag him here.
Okay, so we got Singleton. Nice.
Yeah, we got Singleton. I like the upside of a play like that. Yeah. I mean, again, with what you're saying with Henderson and Singleton, if the other running back in that committee gets hurt, they're going to have so much volume that the value in where you're taking them is just incredible.
Yeah. So, and we spent a lot of time on this pod talking about Andy Kolnecki, right? The OC there. And I love his running backs. He uses those running backs. So,
yeah. All right. Caden Fegan just went. So,
okay.
Do you want to go? We got Caleb Jackson, Jadon Blue at the top. We can go Nick Anderson, Rashad Owens, Kobe Hudson, Cam Cook.
And we're on that. We got to make a decision, don't we? Who is at the top there?
Caleb Jackson.
We could do Caleb Jackson. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably I don't think I've ever taken Caleb Jackson. My only concern there would be if they use a committee approach a little bit. Seems like he's probably the best running back in that room. That's the only thing that would scare me off. But the talent is there, and the system. I think it could be really good. But if there is a committee approach, it could hurt his value a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I think one of the things with the committee approach, it's like, man, if they do that with Josh Williams again, it just means that Caleb Jackson just is beyond incompetent at pass protection because he's clearly head and above, better than the counterpart in Josh Williams as a runner.
Yeah.
So, Cam Cook is another one here. I'm putting him in the queue, but he's the one that's been you get him in round 10-ish.
Yeah, he's been one of my favorite later round, not late round, but a little bit later running backs that you can get. I was big on Trey Sanders early on, mostly because I just wanted that running back in the system. Wasn't too sure who it was going to be. But once Cam Cook took off in spring ball, it was, I pivoted to him and he was a value I really like. He's starting to go a little bit high, but I really like that value there.
Yeah. And in these drafts, I mean, you can see his ADP is 102. It was in the 120 range. I mean, you're getting him around 10 and it just felt like you're getting such a steal in that range of running backs. So we'll look at our team real quick. We got, we're up in 6 picks, but Cam Ward and Jalen Daniels, I really like that start at QB. John Mateer just went to 8, so he's popping up even more. But then we got Taj Brooks, Nick Singleton, and Caleb Jackson at running back, and then we have Luther Burden, Jeremy Bernard at wide receiver, and we don't have a tight end yet. So, what do you want to attack next year? We have 3 picks until we're up.
I kind of feel like I almost want to take another receiver.
Okay. Top of our queue is we got Batter, Moore, Cook, Jeremiah Hunter, Josh Meredith.
Oh, Nick Anderson just went. I was hoping we could get Anderson there.
Yeah.
I don't love Badger. I don't think I would take him.
Yeah, me neither.
Jordan Moore would be okay. I think he's consistent. It'll be interesting to see with.
He's gone. So Jonte Cook.
I like Cook. I think you like Cook too. I don't know if it's too early for him, but
yeah. I mean, if it is, it's around early. Let's do this. be a sniped here, but let's go Connor Wegman.
Okay. Yeah, I like that because he has a really good week 12, I believe.
Yep. I think in week 12, A&M plays New Mexico State, and they got Auburn.
Yeah, that's a good pick there.
Yeah, so I think we've gotten really good value at quarterbacks here. And then, yeah, we're talking about Jonte Cook just now. So if he does come back to us, then we can go him. Go ahead. What were we going to say?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a little early. I also still like Jeremiah Hunter. I know Boston's kind of been the guy that's going early, but Hunter's a guy that I still really like. Do we when do tight ends typically go in these drafts?
We probably need to pick one up next round.
Okay.
All right. So Jonte Cook just went to Dardog. You want to go Jeremiah Hunter?
Yeah, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick in this range. So I'll show you some of this ADP on these tight ends. It's at 118, so right around round 10 for Jake Burningstool.
Mm-hmm.
Luke Haas is going at 127, so right in the 11th round range. And then Justin Jolie is around the same. And that's really where the tight ends are going off is you hit double digits and they start to go. You can see ADP here. So Caden Priest-Corn.
Yeah, those guys are going ahead of. So I like RJ Maryland. Seems like that could be a solid value. He's a guy to me that could. He's got a good ceiling in the tight end room and seems to be pretty consistent. He's a red zone target, which I really like. And until we really get that wide receiver one in that offense, I think we can rely on RJ Maryland a little bit more to get us some points.
Yep. Yeah, so if we went RJ, we could probably target him in the 10th round here. Up.
I'm also good. I actually like those tight ends, right? Any of those top three we have in the queue.
Well, what we might do then is if depending on what happens with these running backs here, with Blue and Johnson, they both fall in here a little bit according to ADP. I guess Johnson could still fall in within the range, but we try to pick one of them up and then get a tight end on the back end.
Yeah, I'm good with
what
that.
we've been doing here is drafting 2 tight ends. So we can get one here and then wait till later on and see who we like. So Chris Bell's another wide receiver that kind of is in this range that has high upside.
I like that. I also like Xavier Henderson. I saw him down there.
Yeah, we can definitely look at both of those as they're going in this range. And then let's see what we got with QB. So this is QBs here. You can see this is ADP, right? But so we took, Childs just went in round 10, right? But we took Connor Wegman at 103 and DJU, Rocco Beck, Daquan Finn, Cade Clement. I mean, these are the guys that are left here, and it's the ADP quite a bit drop.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you can see some good ones here. Our queue, so we're up. So we got. Do we want to go RJ Maryland here and then see if Xavier Henderson falls to us?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Let's talk. What do you like about Xavier Henderson this year?
So, last year, I think he's got a little bit better quarterback play. This year, with Sorsby there, we saw he was pretty solid with Emory Jones last year, and I just feel like that's an upgrade. We've talked about Sorsby a little bit on some of our other pods. And he's going to be that wide receiver one there. I feel like that's an offense where even though you don't look at it as a big time passing offense, but he's kind of the alpha dog in that wide receiver room. And I think there's just going to be some really good weeks for him when you're looking at, wide receiver 4 or 5. He's just a really solid guy to get. He kind of falls in that Jordan Moore for me. Probably not as high of a floor, but I just like what you're going to get with him consistency wise.
Yeah. I'm going to start to fill back up the queue here. Man, Well, you know what? We got 15 picks, so maybe I'll run through some of this. I mean, look again, like this just goes to show. We talked about getting 3 to 4 QBs in the first 10 rounds. Look at rounds 8 through 10 of QBs. John Mateer, round 8. Donovan Smith, round 8. And then you got Tyler Shuck, round 9. Taylor Green, Lenore Sellers, Josh Hoover. I'm telling you, this dude and Sorsby were both going in like rounds 14 through 16.
Oh man,
3 days ago. I
feel like
Aiden Childs is another one. Same thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, even in round 9, that feels like really good value for Hoover and Sorsby. So if you were able to get them later on, pretty good value. But yeah, it's quarterbacks. It feels like they're just getting pushed up more and more.
Yeah, and it could be just the draft that we're in right now, right? You know, because I didn't see this even earlier today that guys are going this high, but you see these run on QBs, and so you just got to, you know, I feel like honestly, like this is maybe one of the better drafts I've had as far as value falling to us, right? Like we're kind of getting the bottom end of the same tier or a good tier with both Cam Ward, Jalen Daniels, and Connor Wegman. Really gives us a solid base here to build off for our team QB position without getting one of the studs. All right, we want to go next. We got 3 running backs, 3 quarterbacks, 4 wide receivers, 1 tight end. So we're pretty well spaced out. Quarterbacks we probably don't need to get for a little while, just because there's not a lot of value in this range. But we got Jordan Waters here, Jonah Coleman. We have let's look at ADP actually. So Quali Conley, the guy Raheem Sanders, Elijah Surratt, Kelly Akarairi goes here. Jadarian Price is a guy that I've, in this format, they have a really good schedule. We're up in 2, so we're gonna have to make some quick decisions here.
I know you like Jordan Waters quite a bit. I think that's a good pick. I'm still like Hemby is a guy I still really like, and I feel like he's just such a good value too.
Yeah, we were talking about that. I can't remember if it was me and Matt with Spay, but it might have been actually JD Yankee. But man, like great talent, but they never use him as much as they should.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's frustrating because he's so talented. It feels like he's an NFL back to me.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you on that. He's a guy that I'm trying to look at where I have him right now. It's not. He's a guy that when I project him, I want to project more than what he's actually gonna do.
Yeah. Okay. Real quick. Let's go wide receiver here. You want Surratt, Akarari, or Samuel Brown?
I like Akarari. I don't know how to say it.
All right.
Surratt, the only thing I worry about there is I like the talent. I love the offense. The concern with me is always going to be that step up in competition for coaching staff and a lot of the players, and how well do they adjust to the Big Ten. We see it a lot with these guys coming up from the group of 5, and they, you get a few guys every so often that does really well and can excel. But we don't see it as often in the Big Ten. And I think it was a great hire by Indiana to bring those guys in. But year one, there just is a lot that I feel like there's going to be a lot of lumps. But to the flip side, I think Surratt's going to have a couple games where he just goes off, and he's going to have some really good weeks. Just going to be inconsistent.
Yeah. And you can see, I mean, people are on him pretty early, right? I mean, 129 ADP, that's 10th round. And now, we're in round 14 almost, and he hasn't gone yet. I want to look at our running backs real quick. We got Taj Brooks, Nick Singleton, Caleb Jackson, Jordan Waters. You were asking about Katron Allen, and I'm not sure if he's still there. We could try to lock up that Penn State room.
I like that. there's going to be so much value there this year between those two guys. I just feel like if you get both of those guys, you're going to have a top running back every single week. And that's how it was last year. It was either Singleton or Allen were a top 12 running back last year.
Yep. Yeah. And, some of the guys that I really like in this range to at running back, you got Le'Veon Moss, that a lot of people are on Ruben Owens. And nothing has told us that Ruben Owens is going to be the guy. So that's purely conjecture. Whereas we've gotten quite a bit of reports that Le'Veon Moss will at least be the first running back out in the first half of the year.
He's one of my most I have him like one of the guys I've drafted the most because you can get him so late in these other drafts we've done. And like you said, I mean, he's kind of the forgotten guy there. And I feel like he's such a good value with where you can get him. And I've tried to get him in any draft that I can.
Yeah. Yeah. Him and, again, like Roydell Williams is another one that he's going to be the guy at least week 1. And I think he holds on to that job. They really like him.
Mm-hmm. He had a good spring. He had a really good spring too.
Yeah. So he's a guy that I really like in that range. As we talk about, these guys are going off the board course. But that's how it goes. But those are some running backs that I think are really good values. Even like you can get Boone, you can get Jeremiah Love kind of later in these.
I don't hate Maccabee either. Just because I don't know that they used him a lot. He might not have as much value. I think he was used a little bit in that passing game last year, but he had some really good weeks. And in a format like this, when you're looking at a RB4, RB5, give you, 4 to 5 really solid weeks, he could be a decent pick down here. It feels like I've taken him a few times.
Yeah, for sure. All right. We are up in 1 pick. What we're going to do here is we're going to get a pick in here, and then we're going to take a quick break after that. Man, all these guys. Roydell Williams just went. So let's go. We go Le'Veon Moss, Jeremiah Love.
I like Le'Veon Moss a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we're going to take Le'Veon Moss, take a quick break here, and then we will be right back. All right. We have 4 more picks till we're up. Let's see what we've fallen here. So Chris Tyree, the guy I like. He was going, you can see his ADP. He was going even higher, going like 136. People are really on him early. He's been dropping of late. And then Chris Hudson is a guy that you can get in this range. We're kind of getting in the range of like, we want to start taking some shots, right?
Yeah.
Shots on some of these guys. And we're going to need to fill in at the quarterback position here too, probably after this pick. But anything here that you want? Anything stick out to you, Chris Hudson, Tyree?
I do like Chris Hudson. He's a bit of a risk. But he's a guy that high risk, high reward, right? If he's that slot guy in that offense, he's a top 10 guy and pretty much every week. So I do like him there. I also like how you got Kobe Pace in the queue. He's a guy that's feels like it's slowly rising for us. Each time we do an update, he continues to rise up the ranks.
Yep. Yeah, I totally get that. Yeah, he's a guy that, again, you want, I don't love running backs on bad teams. I think that can be a recipe for disaster and from a consistency perspective, but in best ball, where you just need him to have a couple boom weeks, Kobe Pace can probably do that. So, all right, we are kind of down in that range of, we need to start looking at, we got 3 quarterbacks early on. But we probably need to look at our 4th or 5th QBs here. So I'm going to put Peyton Thorne and Brock Vandagriff in the queue. Are there QBs that you that stick out to you?
It's probably early, but Luke Altmaier at Illinois doesn't have his schedule's not bad. If you're looking at week 12 through 14, he's not got a ton of upside, but you could probably look at the Graham Mertz, DJ Lagway here as well. If you wanted to go that route.
I have not been bold enough to actually go that route.
Yeah, so with our build right now, I don't know if I would, just because the Jalen Daniels injury factor kind of has me, but it's seems like a good spot to do it. I like the Peyton Thorne pick here. Malik Murphy's interesting. I feel like he could be pretty solid. I think his ceiling's gonna be it's not gonna be super high though, but I think he's gonna be fairly consistent in that offense. And so when you're thinking about
Peyton
a guy that's a QB2, he could be a solid QB2 for you if you have a guy that, you just need a guy that's going to get you some points.
Do you want to go Altmaier or do you want to go Murphy?
I would probably go. Are we on the clock?
Yes.
Sorry, I was trying to look at their schedules. Murphy has the bye. I probably would lean towards Altmaier.
Yeah. Good thing you lean there because that's where we went.
And he's got Michigan State, Rutgers, and Northwestern. I just feel like we don't need him to be an all-star or anything, but we just need him to put up some points. And those are three matchups that quarterbacks did fairly well. Not so much Rutgers, but that Week 12 against Michigan State could be a good fill-in for us. And then the Northwestern, I think quarterbacks did pretty well against them last year as well.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question about Jamal Banks. I know you've been drafting him. Do you feel like he's a guy their playoff schedule is pretty nice, actually. Nebraska gets USC, Wisconsin, and Iowa, but you have USC in that first week 12. That could have some upside. What do you think about him?
I like Banks. I think he's going to be one of the top receivers for them. I actually like Fedoni better at that tight end. I think he's going to be more of a red zone guy, but I think Banks is going to be a guy that, again, they look at in the red zone. Receiver wise, I like him because he's going to have a few weeks that he just goes off. And I think you've probably noticed in a lot of my drafts, I've tried to take Fedoni and Banks. Kind of approach it the same way I would Penn State running backs, right? I feel like it's going to be those two guys. Jalen Lloyd's also a big threat or big play threat. So he'll probably have some really good weeks. But I just think Banks is going to be a very consistent receiver for them and a red zone target. And then I think Fedoni at that tight end position, red zone target. And I think they want to get him more involved. They've talked a lot about getting them involved, and Satterfield moved to the tight end room this year. So the OC in the tight end room makes me think that possibly a few more targets for that room.
Yeah. One thing with Nebraska is they have a week 7 and week 11 bye, which is the same as RJ Maryland. So they don't pair well together. If we do that, we got to go Elijah Arroyo, but Elijah Arroyo is a week 7, week 12 bye. So we probably need to look at some other tight ends here.
Yeah. Those two guys don't really fit with what we have.
Right. Not good builds. We could do Arliss Boardingham from Florida is a guy that we could go. Let's see.
Cole Taylor. What does West Virginia's look like? They got Baylor, UCF, and Texas Tech. Cole Taylor could be a solid. Keanu Hill.
Yeah.
He's one of my favorite guys to take. And they have Kansas, Arizona State, and Houston. I almost think you look at
So they got week 6, week 10, and then SMU has 3, 7, 11. All right, let's do Keanu Hill. I love that. Yeah, Keanu Hill, right? Former wide receiver.
Yeah.
Turned tight end. It could be an absolute beast at the tight end position. Have you heard any reports specifically about him, or just noticed that he's change
No.
designation?
I did read a little bit. He's supposed to be they're kind of an impact guy. There wasn't, but what I read, it was just like they have like 4 or 5 receivers that are kind of, it's almost like receiver by committee there. And Keanu Hill was in that mix, but to me, at that tight end position, you don't need him to be, getting 100 targets, right? So I think
Right.
he's supposed to. It sounds like he should make an impact in that offense. He's gonna be a guy that they rely on in that passing game. So a guy I'm pretty excited about this year, just where you're getting him the value you could have with him late in these drafts.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. All right. I think some of those quarterbacks we were targeting are gone. So Peyton Thorne went. Let's see. Did Brock Vandegrift went. So we could come back with Murphy.
Yeah.
Here, if we felt like we need a 5th quarterback,
I'd be good with that.
Or him or MJ Morris.
Oh
no, he just went.
Of course he did.
We're just gonna go MJ Morris. So what I asked the same question to on the stream with JD Yankee. What do you think the percentage chances that MJ Morris is the starter for the entire season this year?
Yeah, I don't the entire season. I don't know. I don't feel great about MJ Morris. He's a guy I was really excited for him at NC State because of that offense, and I just felt like his skill set really fits the Robert and I offense. Maryland, he won't have the weapons around him, and I just don't. I honestly don't really know what to expect with that Maryland offense because it just feels like they do. I mean, we already talked about Hemby, right? It feels like they aren't utilizing their guys to their ability. And if they don't utilize MJ Morris the right way, he's not going to be good in that offense. And I don't know. He's a guy I haven't really taken much. But I feel like he's a guy that has talent. He's a guy that can use his legs a little bit to get you some value there. But I don't know. That's a tough question. I guess I would say I don't expect him to, if he does start the whole season, I don't know if we're really going to see the value that we could with him just because of that offense.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, you got, Ty Felton, Caden Prater there. I mean, they're not bad wide receivers. And so I am curious, what MJ Morris could look like in offense. But I also thought Billy Edwards looked great in the whole game. So it's just hard to say. I mean,
did they name a starter at the end of spring? Do you know?
No. So I know people have been taking shots on MJ Morris, and I mean, any guy that's a dual threat quarterback, could have really good value.
Yeah.
So those are guys.
I like the dribbling in the queue.
Yeah, that's who we're going here.
I like that.
JD Yankee and I were talking about him. But why do you like him? Why don't you share with us your thoughts as we close this out?
He only played. He was limited last year. Correct. He got hurt early in the season.
Yeah.
And he was pretty good early in the season. And that's an offense that you have 2 other guys, Presley and Owens, that are going pretty early, but he's a guy that I think he fits in that offense. Came over from Washington State. He's a guy that I've kind of been excited and just waiting for him to break out. And last year it felt like he was going to possibly have that season. And so when you're taking him this late in the draft, right? If it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. But he's a guy that offense is going to score points. There's a lot of targets in that offense, and he's a guy that could really, have some good weeks, and he could be a guy that ends up being a top receiver on that team. By the end of the year. So I love that.
And he was ahead of Rashad Owens on the depth chart last year.
Yeah.
I mean,
until they got
hurt. Right. Yeah. And so, JD, I mentioned that that Mike Gundy had said that he thinks Deshaun Stribling is an NFL talent. And so, and Gundy's not just one to mince words. I mean, I think when he says something, he means it. And so, that kind of value that late is really good. All right.
Yep.
So let's walk through this with our team. We got, to end this, we got 5 QB, 6 running backs, 7 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. So I feel like we got really good roster construction here. But as we look at this, where do you think are the pitfalls of our team? And let's do best case, worst case scenario. What's the best case scenario for this team? And then what's the worst case scenario?
So if Jalen Daniels stays healthy, I love the quarterback room, right? Cam Ward, to me, he's close to a top 10 guy. Jalen Daniels on any given week can be a top 10 guy. Connor Wegman, he's a guy that he might not have it every single week, but just really high upside there with him. Altmaier and Morris, it gets pretty thin, but again, they're 2 guys that could give you a couple weeks. So I think we need Jalen Daniels to stay healthy though.
Yeah, totally. Running back.
So we have a lot of guys. So Singleton, Jackson, possibly, and Moss they're in committees or could be in committees, but I think there's enough guys that we're going to hit on weeks here with Brooks, Singleton. I wish we could have got Allen. I like the Jordan Waters pick. He's kind of that consistent guy that you're going to need. So if you do kind of don't hit with a Jackson or a Moss, you're going to have Waters. And then Kobe Pace, you talked about it. He's going to be RB1. So it might not be every week, but at least we know he's going to be the guy there. And hopefully get some weeks there. But I think we're pretty good. We just need some of those guys. We need Moss and Jackson to win those jobs outright. And I think we have a really good room there.
Yeah. I mean, if we had 5 RB1s, basically, Nick Singleton averaged 17 to 20 points a game, in my opinion. He's so talented. And so, if we had those guys, if they had solidified those jobs, it's pretty high upside. I mean, it's risky, but this is best ball. This isn't redraft.
Right.
All right. Talk about our wide receiver.
I actually really like the wide receiver room because these are a lot of guys I draft. We talked about Burden. He's just so electric out there, right? Bernard's going to be that guy at Bama. I still think Hunter. I mean, I know it's Boston. I like Boston too, but Hunter, he didn't do it in the spring game, but we talked. He was in another scrimmage where he had 3 touchdowns. I just think he might not do it every week, but there's value there. I love Henderson as wide receiver 1 there. Hudson and Stribling could be 2 really, really valuable guys that we got late. I mean, those are 2 guys that you could finish in the top 15, with the position that they're in. So I think this is probably my favorite room. I know there's a little bit, it could hurt us. There's not a lot of proven guys in their, at their current team in their current position, but feels very boom bust. And I am thinking it's going to boom.
And to me, okay, we have Luther Burden as our wide receiver 1, right? And there's only one other wide receiver slot. You only start 2 wide receivers in this format. So we're not asking these guys to go off every week. We're going, hey, can one of you guys go off? Twice in the season. So and then tight end. What do you think there?
Yeah, I like this. I mean, RJ Maryland, he's a top 10 guy for me. Keanu Hill, I think, is a guy that has potential to have some really good weeks. He's not going to probably be super consistent, kind of that top tier, but it's always tough to get out of tight ends. I think Keanu Hill, where we got him, was a great value. I think he's probably better than some of the other tight ends that went off before him.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Look, I think what we did with this draft is we drafted a best ball team. And a team that I think will compete later on, or it's going to bust, right? But again, you don't get anything in this format for finishing in 6th. And you got to finish high. So you got to get high upside players. And that's what we went after. Got really good value there late at the wide receiver position, like you said, and some running backs that there's always injuries at the running back position. And so if our guys end up being the guy versus in a committee, then, I think we'll really hit. So, man, this is fun getting the draft together. Yeah, it took a while for us to fill, but that just means we got to talk strategy. So that was a lot of fun. Hey, again, we have a special Underdog promo with Fantasy Points. And so we have a 50% matching deal up to $500. So that's $250 off if you put $500 into Underdog. The promo code there is Fantasy PTS. And you get $55 off of our college football only subscription at Fantasy Points with that deal as well. Man, we are not only doing Underdog stuff on our site, we're doing DFS and we have props. Man, our projections were among the best last year in both CFF and DFS. We're bringing projected ownership this year. We're writing article on a ton of slates. And man, just our Discord is phenomenal as well for the injuries on Saturday mornings when you're scrambling. A lot of people are scrambling for injury news. We're not in our Discord because we're collaborating. We're helping each other out. It's a great community. So you can join us over there at Fantasy Points, and we would love to have you as part of our family over there. So, hey, we're going to get out of here. And until next time, do small things with great love.
What?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.